Welcome! I am Public Enemy Numero Uno and thank you so much for watching this. Today I want to talk about how to build an organic campaign. An organic campaign is one that is built through process and interactions instead of just putting things together from scratch. Effectively, you live out the experiences of the villain long before they are the big bad and follow their progress to the point that they become the big bad. Okay. This is something that I have done, and it is extremely time consuming. Like, this is an entire game in and of itself. What happens is you create your idea, you build rules for that idea, then you play out the idea sequence by sequence. When I did this, I literally kept a shorthand journal that followed the progress of the villain from day to day, with a calendar to cross-match important events. As to building the campaign, there are a number of things that you must have in order for it to work. The first part is to understand that it is a game. What I mean by that is there needs to be a chance of failure and randomness that you as the villain must interact with and respond to. Creating what these events are depends on the villain in question. Even if the villain should end up in defeat before the players ever get to hear about it, there are ways of still using this. Either as a side story that has impacted the world in some way, or as a sharp roadblock that either the villain must rise above or a different villain will rise from. This adds depth and makes the world feel more lived in. It is up to you and your imagination on how the villain lays out their story and deals with their own challenges. The second part is creating the villain. You can create whatever you want, but I use the normal rules for character creation to create a level 1 character. This only really worked for playable creatures, but a similar method could work for other monsters. Once I have the base level of the villain established, I need to know how the villain will progress. The villain gains experience by performing certain actions, so I write up 5 things that the villain can earn experience for, but make sure that the experience can be scalable, like 100 experience per CR of the creature killed, or 1 experience per gold obtained. Things like that can scale with the villain as they gain power. The third part is understanding the goal of the campaign, not just the personality bits of the villain, but what is the motivation behind everything. Why is the villain doing what they are doing? Determining how the villain acts is a matter of creativity on your part. From there, it should also be easier to determine the challenges that the villain might have to overcome to accomplish its desires. Where do the challenges come from? Well, the fourth part is the challenges. The challenges are derived from the unique rules that are created to establish the game being played, often formed by random tables of events to establish DCs that act as barriers. The rules constrain the villain, forcing it to make choices in arisen situations. You create a goal in mind, you establish the rules required to achieve said goal, and you play the villain as it attempts to reach the goal. The standard rules for this game are these. Keep it simple for yourself. Don't draw up maps or do any unnecessary work, as you can largely play inside your own mind for this. Save those things for the players to interact with. If the villain interacts with NPCs, use basic stats and have the interaction be determined by a contest die roll. Let's see what that looks like. A disillusioned soldier or mercenary that desires to be a conqueror and ruler. How does the villain go about this? The villain could abandon civilization, become a bandit along the roads, collecting wealth and gathering followers. Growing vast enough in size and power, the villain may choose to establish their own settlement as a staging ground or immediately attack a nearby settlement as the start of their conquest. Immediately, I know a few things about the villain. First, any nearby settlement will be antagonized by it, creating the challenges for the villain and the plot hooks for the players. The early challenges will mostly be using stealth, as a level 1 fighter has neither the strength nor skill enough to take on a caravan, let alone a guarded one. As the villain gets stronger, it can risk larger encounters, gaining greater wealth and starting to get some kills under its belt. Eventually, it may come across other vagrants by random chance or seek out exiles from nearby settlements. The villain could persuade, bribe, impress, or intimidate the creatures to join their side. The stronger the villain, the more powerful creatures the villain can attempt to hire. Soon its raids on caravans become more coordinated and entire groups can be put to the sword or carried off as slaves or hostages. Trying to cajole anyone captured to joining is another option, but shouldn't be as rewarding. Finally, the villain has obtained a measure of wealth and power that their reach might extend outward, potentially starting their conquest. Upon knowing this, I can now determine how the villain gains experience and what rules and tables I should use. For progression, the villain should gain the experience determined by the creature's CR for killing it and half as much for capturing it. Each gold value obtained by the villain should grant 1 experience per gold taken. For followers, gaining 100 experience per CR of the creature hired should be sufficient. As an extra boost, I would add that for each settlement built or conquered, the villain gained 10,000 experience. A far off goal, but one that would be worthwhile. As to the rules, I need to create a table to determine what might come along the road to endanger the villain. Apart from the results of the table, I also add a DC for skill and combat challenges that the villain must overcome. For travelers, I determine the different caravan sizes with a random selection of merchants, guards, level of guards, and wealth to be obtained. For dangers, those can be random wild animals, monstrosities, or other types of monsters that could be appropriate depending on the campaign setting. Finally, I add a few unique parts that make sense for the villain. The chance to come across other bandit groups to be faced, conquered, or assimilated, or vagabonds. Random NPCs that could be of worth or fear to the villain. With that, you now can run your game. Despite your best efforts, you are going to find that the villain may choose to do things outside of what has been already written. Creating a camp takes time and resources and could involve doing some downtime activities to build or reinforce buildings or set up and improve the villain's gear and followers. Seeking out troublesome or powerful rulers or monsters to parley with might come up, especially if the random table is not being kind to the villain. Even in this situation, the villain can fail. If the villain fails while weak, they are written off as a nuisance. If the villain fails while at the height of its power, then there is potential that is left without direction. Another villain could rise, or an existing one enters the fray. In either case, this can be a fun and entertaining way to build a campaign that doesn't involve searching through books and maps, trying to piece together anything from scratch, struggling from plot hooks, and trying to recall the important details that the players need to have to succeed. The most interesting part of this is that you will know every possible facet of the villain and its history without writing more than a few sentences of description. What's more, you can better understand the villain's personality, bonds, laws, and the like better than just writing up something random. You actually lived and thought as the villain and might even be able to play them more convincingly with your players. With that, please comment down below as I would love to hear more ideas or criticisms. Thank you again for watching my video and have an enjoyable day.